Howdy, howdy. We are live on another Friday night with 5 more Star Trek Prodigy Season 2 episodes to discuss. So with 5 whole episodes to talk about, we should go
The
ahead and
halfway
get started.
point.
Yeah. We'll be halfway through Season 2. I see Cake is Eternal is saying hi to us, ready to go. So
The week in between, like Lower Decks, when it comes out, is going to feel eternal.
yeah,
Right.
but let's go ahead and get the show started. I'm Fatheree,
This is Dave.
I'm Aaron.
and this is Tex-Trek.
Engage.
Welcome back aboard the Starship Texas for the 295th installment of the Tex-Trek podcast, the home of Star Trek fandom from deep in the heart of Texas, where we take a deep look at Star Trek, old and new. And tonight, we are discussing Star Trek Prodigy Season 2, episodes 6 through 10. So it'll be 5 episodes to deep dive like we did last week, but there's a lot of big events in these. I think it's going to be a lot of fun to unpack. Before we do that, just a little bit of housekeeping. Per usual, I need to give a big thank you and shout out to the wonderful Tex-Trek Patreon supporters. Thank you so much, Starfleet, Sohel, Cake is Eternal, Crazy Dutchie, Joanne Robertson, John Dog, Geek Filter, Quark Spar, Stephanie Durantes, Matthew Averett, Braxton, Chuck A, Joel Vallis, Benjinium, Arthur Lamoureux, and our anonymous supporters. If you are watching us live on Friday night, we are actually having our monthly Patreon watch party tomorrow on July 13th at 3:30 p.m. Central Time, and we're going to be watching the Strange New Worlds episode, Those Old Scientists, the crossover with Lower Decks. If that wasn't exciting enough, that's already kind of like a double feature of itself. You know, you're getting like 2 shows, but we're going to follow that up with Deep Space Nine's Take Me Out to the Hollow Suite and get some baseball action as well. So,
And a very
Good
jerky
episodes.
Vulcan.
Yeah, you mean a Vulcan, basically.
We're gonna talk today about a kinder, gentler Vulcan.
yeah.
But also, she's got the jerky side too. We saw it early on. So
There's the species that coined the phrase infinite diversity and infinite combinations doesn't have a ton of diversity, but there is some range there. There's some multifacets, I guess, within the Vulcan culture.
Cybok would like
Diversity
to
can
take the
mean many
mic.
things. It doesn't necessarily need to mean the people. It could be ideas or.
That's right.
But it will be a fun time. It's always a great group that shows up for the watch parties. So I encourage people to join. You can come in as little as $2 a month, and that'll get you into the monthly watch parties. If you can afford to be more generous, there's some additional perks as well. I'd also like to remind people that these Prodigy Season 2 streams are also being released on Aaron's podcast, Drawn to Trek, part of the
Yes.
Trek Geeks Network. So,
It's episode 27, I think.
Aaron, if you'd like to tell us about the Trek Geeks sponsor, Fansets.
Yeah. So we're sponsored by Fansets, which is really cool. Like, if you're a Star Trek fan, you probably know Fansets. They make all the cool pins, and I think they actually put out 2 TAS badges recently, and it looks like they're based on my design. So I think that it was in the style guide. But if you want to get 10% off, you can type in the coupon code Trek Geeks, all one word, and no spaces. So you get 10% off your order for that.
Right on.
And it does come in handy. It's like getting free shipping, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just factor that out instead of factoring it in.
Yeah.
And there is a little bit of news to cover that we had dropped on this week before we get into these 5 episodes of Prodigy. I'm not sure if y'all saw it, but there was some Starfleet Academy casting news. Wasn't a big Hollywood name this time, like Paul Giamatti and who's the other one? Holly Hunter, right?
Holly Hunter. Yeah, not Helen Hunt.
That would have been interesting.
Yeah.
But we have some of the cadets, some of the kids. So I guess these are probably going to be the three biggest ones, kind of like the three big focuses, the three big. I mean, this is like the Boimler and Mariner of the show, I guess. But
Kirk, Spock, and McCoy.
Yeah, this is the Spock, the Kirk, Spock, and McCoy of the Academy. But Carice Brooks, Bella Shepherd, and George Hawkins, all really young, fairly fresh faces. But that's what we want.
They look like they're in the Academy, which is good.
Students,
Yeah.
Yeah, they should look like students. So
yeah, I think the notable thing is indeed that they are cast from like up and comers, and you know that's a lot of times that's ideal. I always think the original casting of Christopher Reeve as Superman. You weren't going to see him unless I think was he in theater before that? Soap opera, that's right. So you were unlikely to look on the screen and be like, oh, it's blank or from some other property or whatever. You just saw exactly what he portrayed. He was Superman. And these kids are going to be
Superman.
kids. Yeah, became Superman. So yeah, I'm sure we could do a little bit of a dive into their odds and ends Disney shows they were on or whatever. But hopefully they're well cast.
And they have finally announced the happenings at San Diego Comic-Con this year as far as Star Trek. There's going to be a big, huge Star Trek Universe panel in Hall H, Saturday, July 27th, starting at 1:45 p.m. Pacific time. We're expecting to see Strange New Worlds, Lower Decks, Starfleet Academy, Section 31, all represented. I think we're going to get trailers or clips or something for, some footage, because they've shot stuff for all of those. Except for Starfleet Academy, but I think there's going to be some more casting news because they're about to start shooting that. Like cameras will be rolling in Toronto any week now. They've talked about how they plan to start shooting in July or August, and it's already July. So we'll get I think a better look at or just like some more information at least on the Academy show.
We'll get a Lower Decks trailer that has at least one thing that Mike didn't want to be shown in the trailer because he didn't get to edit it.
And something in there that'll be wrong. There will be something in there that's misleading. Then when we actually see it in the show, it'll be different.
You'll be like, oh, that's what they meant.
Yeah.
Exciting. It's a fun game of guessing.
But Prodigy is also getting a panel Sunday. They're gonna show one of the season 2 episodes, and there's IDW is doing a Trek comics panel at San Diego Comic-Con on Sunday, July 28th, as well.
Nice.
I was supposed to be on that.
Who's that?
I was supposed to be on that originally.
Oh, you get shuffled.
It's just
around.
There's too many people at Comic-Con to for my immune system to handle.
Well, we've talked about some of the cool stuff IDW is doing, and Father, you interviewed the editor in chief.
Yeah, Heather Antos.
Yeah, or like head of the Trek comics, and so yeah, I'm sure they've got more cool stuff coming up. I'll be very interested to hear what the plans are.
Yeah, cool stuff that Aaron will be drawing covers.
Yeah. Just gonna
No
say,
doubt,
like,
no
I
doubt.
watch this and go, oh hi, can I do a cover for? That's cool.
But they also had some big surprising news today that I think a lot of us might. I want to encourage people not to get like too hyped up about this.
Yeah,
We don't know what it means exactly.
The joint panel between the showrunners of Doctor Who and Star Trek. I guess I should say franchise runners of Doctor Who and Star. But Alex Kurtzman and Russell T Davies are doing a Doctor Who meets Star Trek. What do they call it? Like Intergalactic Day of Friendship Day or something.
Yeah.
Like that.
Well, and the thing is, it's not like they're just having a panel and they just happen to have those two people, which would be cool. This is literally Star Trek and Doctor Who being put together in the title and everything.
I like whatever it is. I think that's cool. I think the two series have a lot of thematic crossover and no doubt a lot of fan crossover.
Yeah.
If
this doesn't mean any announcement or anything. I mean, it might. It might mean there's more of this to come. It might have just been that they were both they were both going to be there on Saturday the 27th. So they were like, hey, I like Doctor Who. You like Star Trek. Let's do a panel together. And
right.
yeah,
It's like the panel equivalent of a handshake between the two franchises.
Yeah.
This is
like
so
Roddenberry
funny.
and Lucas on stage at the first Star Wars convention.
Oh,
It
yeah.
reminds me of 20 years ago when Russell T Davies was getting Doctor Who going again on the BBC and brought back new Doctor Who. But he wanted to do something with Star Trek then, but he couldn't because Enterprise was getting canceled and the Berman era of Star Trek came to an end. So he never had an opportunity until now that he came back to Doctor Who at a time when Star Trek was in production.
Interesting. Yeah, there is doubtless. I mean, already in our comments, Jill was saying Wesley and Doctor Who road trip episode, and Joel said Murph and K9 together at last.
I would like that.
There's, the speculation is going to happen, and maybe this is just like a little testing the waters, like see if like, well, let's be franchise buddies and see what people say. And
I think we
they're gonna
know
be
that
interested.
Russell T Davies wants to do. The guy in charge of Doctor Who has been saying for 20 years he wants to make this happen. It's not up to him, but this might just be his olive branch to try to start a process that could hypothetically lead to that, but probably won't. But maybe there's a possibility of it. It is exciting.
I think so. And I know our own Rachel posted a TikTok earlier about this, kind of doing a little speculation and what's going on, and she mentioned that of course there was a comic that our who's our artist friend
J.K. Woodward, who has actually we've had on the show many years ago. But
the mighty J.K. Woodward did a beautiful job painting it in a very photorealistic style. And that had I think it has a lot of qualities to recommend to the story too. I recommended checking out
a comic that's no longer in print and would be hard to find, but you can probably track it down somewhere. But
digitally,
yeah,
I think you can probably get it.
Let's see. That was the Matt Smith era, if I'm not mistaken.
It was Matt Smith as the Doctor, and it was TNG as the Trek that the Doctor crossed paths with. But there was a cool flashback in there to Tom Baker and the original series, so that was neat.
Oh, that's right.
Which was drawn by a different artist.
Separate style within the flashback.
Yeah.
I looked up the cover or the comic, and the first thing that comes up is a drawing that Woodward did at a convention of. What's her name? River Song as a Klingon woman.
Oh,
like the batleth and everything.
Oh, that's fun. Yeah.
Yeah, he loves Klingons. So
there's so many cool possibilities that they could have in there. We off mic we were talking about this a little bit, and that they, as broadly peaceful and utopian as Trek is, the Doctor had did not like Worf busting out a phaser in the TARDIS. There was some arguments over and some moral debates over solutions, I think, in dealing with the Borg. And that's just one of many different kind of stories you could tell. These franchises are both forward-thinking, progressive, imaginative, sci-fi homes. So I feel like the possibilities are endless if something does happen with it.
Well, let's get into our first episode that we're going to talk about. Season 2, Episode 6, Imposter Syndrome. It kicks off this 5-episode arc of stealing the ship and finding Chakotay. It's a bit of like that Grand Theft Starship thing of Star Trek 3.
Long-running tradition.
Every person has to steal. It has to be a ship. The main ship has to be stolen by something at some point.
Yeah.
Right? Saw Spock steal the Enterprise in Strange New Worlds, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And in the Menagerie back in '66. So
Data's done it. I was thinking about doing it.
This one was written by Deandra Pendleton Thompson and directed by Sung Shin. The synopsis on it reads, hoping to hijack the Infinity before its scheduled destruction, Dal and the crew create hologram doubles to cover for their absence. So I liked that hologram idea. I thought that was kind of fun. The way that like they put so much thought into making that work, like that the fake Zero could read the brains of the other holograms, and that like if they knew they were holograms, they'd blow the cover. And I don't know. I thought that stuff was cool. But what do y'all think?
The holograms are actually like instantly their match. They're as smart or occasionally as dopey as they are. There's a really entertaining what would you call it? Conflict between Dal and his hollow version, where they have a quick dust up in the halls. They say the exact same thing to each other. This is for your own good.
Yeah. They shoot the phasers out of each other's hands at the same time.
Yeah, and then they end up running off from each other. But yeah, I thought that was a fun idea. Although I actually thought it slightly overstayed its welcome over like the 2 episodes, I think, or 2 or 3, where they were lurking in the background.
They're really only like lurking in the background for like 1 episode, and then like the next episode they find it out pretty quick. But
well, there was sort of two things with them. One is the one where they were their exact duplicates, and then there was a glitch in the next episode, and then they had their personalities switched.
Right.
So there was kind
which
of
is where we are picking up now.
But yeah, I thought it was a fun idea as well. Gave Rock Talk like a cool thing to do, and also the most wholesome interaction where basically she teams up with her hollow self to resolve stuff and not fight with her.
The opposite of Dal. That was a cool juxtaposition to see like the 2 Rock Talks get along and work together and be productive.
This is a minor thing, sort of pre all of that, but it was during the exposition portion that set up the episode that that they were going to launch the
Infinity
into a sun, into a blue giant, and what's the name? Daveed Diggs as is it Tysus? Is that his name?
Mm-hmm.
Commander Tysus. I was happy to see him get a little bit more screen time in all of these episodes, but in this one he got he's got a kind of Spock-like presence. He's serious. Yeah, he's got the deep voice.
I think he's Janeway's new Tuvok. I think after she came back to the Alpha Quadrant, she's like, well, I need a new younger Tuvok to replace my Tuvok. So she got Tysus.
But yeah, he's got that seriousness. I think that must be something that if you were looking in the big picture, that Janeway looks for in a second in command. In her number 1.
But he has a little bit of flexibility more than Tuvok did.
For sure.
Yeah, not quite as rigid. The episode used that device of you open up at like the beginning of the 3rd act and then flash back to the very beginning.
Oh, I liked it in this case. I thought that was a fun one. Just to set up the point of tension.
Yeah, why would all the it seems like all the kids are like, did they like get hacked by the Borg, or are they like addicted to the game from the TNG episode, the game, or what like brainwashed them against Dal is kind of how it reads.
Changeling duplicates. There's
Star Trek Dal's just being Dal.
Dal is just being Dal. But yeah, there's so many ways that you can essentially have an evil version of yourself running around in Trek that I think it's a fair suspense thing to set up.
It could have the mirror universe could have even happened at that point. You don't know like what transpired in the time period.
That's true.
One of my favorite things about the show is whenever the kids feel like a real group of kids. Like just doing like, oh yeah, I remember like doing that when I was a kid. And it was a fun moment during the beginning of the Doctor walking down the corridor and he hears laughter and he's immediately suspicious. Like, what is going on in this room? And it felt like being in a classroom in school and laughing, and then like a teacher or a principal or someone like walking down the hall like sticks their head in to see, okay, what's going on. But I really liked that moment. It just rang so true.
You're having far too much fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I got like the PTSD from the early 2000s, where literally like every show was started like previously or a week
minutes
ago,
earlier.
30 minutes earlier. Yeah, exactly. It was just like so.
It was a very common device
here.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think like what Jill was saying is like it's about 5 minutes too much of the holograms, but other than that,
I like
I thought
the
there was
first time you see it.
Well, go ahead, Father.
I like the first time you see it malfunction and glitch out when it's just like the Jankum hologram. It was very similar to when Quark's staff went on strike in Bar Association in Deep Space Nine, and he tried to he tried to replace them with holograms of himself, but they would glitch out. It was very similar to that.
Yeah.
Well, I also thought it had a little bit of the I've made them too smart, like Moriarty. Got a little bit of that kind of Sherlock Holmes vibe.
They're too good at their jobs in Star Trek's future. They keep on accidentally making their own worst enemies.
And how old is Rock? Like 7? I know she lived for a long time on the ship or whatever, but she is really good at holographic programming.
It is true. She does seem to be a little sort of savant.
I thought the Jankum
she studied all of science. It looked like every time there's something. Oh, this is blah 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 blah. She'll know roughly what it is to start with.
Yeah, for sure. They made her they showed her inveterate curiosity. They actually did make that point in the first season that she's like, oh, I want to get into science, and they're like, well, what field? And she was just like awestruck at all the awesome possibilities when she saw.
There's more than one.
Yeah. But now, ironically, she's kind of knows them all and has become that comic book or sci-fi scientist who knows all the things. But I feel like for a show like this, that makes a lot of sense.
The Jankum stuff was a little silly. That was the only hologram shenanigans that bothered me. Was him breaking the replicator and then making his doppelganger repair it, and just he got a little too cartoonish, I think, which I guess Jankum can do on occasion.
Yeah, they did get around to in this series of episodes. I was like, oh, there's their bodily function humor a few times.
I was when I saw that, I'm like, oh, Dave.
It made a comeback on me. It backstabbed me.
Now the sonic toilet is canon in Star Trek now. Now we know that
a bidet kind of thing, but just with sonic. With sound waves.
Now we know that Dr. Bashir and Counselor Troy and all our other beloved Star Trek characters used sound waves to clean poop off their butts. So, and we didn't know that before July 1st, or I didn't. So,
oh no, what would we have done if we hadn't found out?
Well, let me go back and re-edit my fanfic now.
Yeah, the sonic toilet, canon since 2024.
First cetacean ops, now the sonic toilet. What's next, Prodigy?
Yeah. What will the Star Trek storytellers think up next? I did think that the use of Majel in this episode was fun when she really takes a bullet for the team and distracts the doctor. Says maybe I want singing lessons from you. But
she
says,
deserved hazard pay for that,
or telepathically conveys to Zero that it's easy to be cool for someone as fascinating as you. If a cute Vulcan tells you that, then they're that's like serious Vulcan flirting, right?
That's big time. And that was that the scene where that's kind of their missed connection because Zero is secretly having to go off and do all this hologram.
I got to do some Grand Theft Starship. I can't tell you.
That's terrible because we know that Zero was interested, was wanting to further this conversation with Majel, and had to run off and do this. What a heartbreaker. Now, luckily, things go a little bit better in the next several episodes, but I was like, oh no, when that happened.
And when the ship was going to be shot into the star, and so they were going to secretly board it and then pilot away, or cloak it and pilot away when everyone thinks it's burnt up. So you're doing something kind of boring, just pulling the car out of the garage and driving away, but doing it but we might die if we do it wrong makes it instantly more exciting and interesting.
Every time I see the back of it, I think of the DeLorean from Back to the Future.
I mean, it is a very time travel-y vehicle, so that's not a bad thing to call back to, I guess.
I noticed that I feel like there was a pretty quintessential Dal line when he said of their plan that better to ask forgiveness than permission.
Permission, yeah.
And I think
that's him in a nutshell.
It is, and Rock Talk is like, you want to steal another ship?
But this is. The other kids really start calling Dal out on his leadership decisions a lot. Kind of like in season 1, they're like, okay, this guy is calling himself the captain, and I guess we're going to go along with it. And now they're kind of pushing back a little bit. So it's here. This is a few episodes after this, I guess. I think in episode 8 is when it becomes extremely clear, but Dal is kind of forced to become more self-reflective when other people start questioning him.
He's a little bit slow to get around to it. Like, I noticed in that very first episode of the second season that all the other characters were at least somewhat changed by their Starfleet training, and Jankum had combed his hair and was trying. But Dal, not really. And I think it's like he does not necessarily grow easily in an academic setting, a traditionally academic setting. He's got to kind of do a little bit of the School of Hard Knocks. That is where he thrives. He's got to have, instead of being checked by some teacher, he needs to be checked by his friends, which will, begin to occur in the next several episodes.
I also liked Gwen continuing to put in effort to understand Murph, and is getting to the point now where she can understand or be like, okay, that was either yes or Talaxian burrito, but I narrowed it down to two things. So
right,
was there disco and mushroom in there or something too? It's like, oh, that's feels like something we might know.
That was when, there was a bunch of words that was the universal translator going off, right, for Murph.
Yeah, that was one of the episodes we covered last week. But I loved that moment too, of just getting a glimpse into what's going on in his mind, and kind of thinking of Murph as kind of, he's just he's just non-vocal, non-verbal, but he's still super smart, and so it's all this advanced stuff going on in his brain, and I don't know, just I feel like I understand him a lot more now just from that one sequence.
Well, by the end of this series of episodes, there will be someone who's talking about, as if he was talking to R2-D2, the way Luke does, as if full ideas by episode.
Help 10. Us, Murph! You're our only hope.
And I also liked that when they get into the Infinity, it was launched into the star before they could board it. They were too late, and then they had to do the last minute beam to it.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that was a cool little misdirect.
I did have to question a little bit of the science where they're we're out of Voyager's visual range, and I'm I have no doubt.
So we're out of their tracking.
I have no doubt that they could scan the interior of the star
of a Class B hypergiant, or however they describe. I was no, that's a
casually scan most of that stuff.
They would watch it till it disappeared.
Then why in TNG? Why did they need Dr. Crusher to develop the metaphasic shields? The Borg couldn't even get down in Descent Part 1. The Borg couldn't even get into that star that was much smaller than this. It wouldn't be thrown off near as much radiation as this one.
Well, I'm just I feel like scanning, observational stuff, passive scanners, all that stuff. I feel like they're real good with that in Starfleet.
Yeah.
And just the idea that you just kind of have to wait till you're around the bend, kind of, and then just take it and then just fly off.
But they turned the cloaking device on, so that's why they didn't see them.
Right, but I think Voyager would have been we're gonna pick up its detonation. I mean, we can watch stuff blow up when it descends into Saturn's atmosphere.
I guess it is contrived. I just guess doing the ceremonious thing, sending it into a sun. I guess that seems a little bit more contrived, and it's just why not just break down the components into the replicator, or just use your transporter to scramble it back into energy. And,
obviously they should let a trigger happy a crew member just shoot it to pieces.
But I thought that's actually, if that is how they're getting rid of it, that is kind of a cool little plot to we'll just whenever they think it's supposed to hit the sun, we'll just flip the switch for the cloaking device.
It's sort of a minor thing. It is somewhat the nature of the show to have kind of simpler explanations than we expect to get in the live action
I think any Trek show would have gone with that. That seems like par for course with Trek. With Trek logic.
Say that I think they're good at observing stellar phenomena.
Okay.
And that they would watch a ship this potent. I think they'd watch it blow up.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think that's what my weird note to myself was.
Oh yeah.
I think it's more weird that they would make this big ceremony about it, but I don't question the science.
Janeway is that was her one last chance to find Chakotay, she thinks. So it's sort of, I think it's more her ceremony.
Symbolic of kind of her saying goodbye to him, or what could be a goodbye to him.
With then ending the episode with the other holograms, with the ones with the switched out personalities. I thought it was kind of like an enticing hook. Like, oh, this is clearly not going to work, so I want to see it. I want to see this plan fall apart.
I like
feel
how they
like all of
glitch just when somebody's not looking at them. Like every time they turn around a corner, and then they glitch right before the person turns around.
I guess that's the dramatic thing, but in the next episode, we'll see them being observed glitching.
But I meant just here in this sort of instance when they first are put out into.
Oh yeah, I guess that is just pure dramatic contrivance, right?
Oh yeah, no, I think it's just funny though. It's like okay.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, you have. Let's see. I'm trying to think. Who does Zero? Does Zero end up in Dal?
Zero and Dal switch, and Jankum and Rock Talk switch, and then Murph and Gwen switch.
That had to be fun because I wonder if they did that thing where, behind the scenes where the voice actors they'd be like, okay, I'm going to say this line, but like voice actor.
The voice actors recorded it as themselves and then sent it to like the other actor, because that's how Brett Gray and Kate Mulgrew did Mind Walk in season 1.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that was so much fun. They're like, oh, we should do more of this. We should have our actors do this more often.
I get it.
It's a Freaky Friday on the ship.
Yeah, it's a fun thing to do.
Yeah, and the actors know the show so well. They know the other characters. They know those voices, so it's easy.
Yeah.
It's easier for them to emulate that stuff because they hear the stuff so much. And
I'm assuming now they probably are in the same studio when they're recording a group scene or something like that.
I've never heard of that, but maybe they've done some group recordings on Prodigy.
Because if they haven't, they do a lot better than the TAS actors.
Father, you mentioned that it's a fun cliffhanger, and I think nearly every episode that I've seen usually I think has a pretty good little cliffhanger teaser kind of stinger scene that
hook.
Makes you kind of enthused to see where to next. And they're nice and concise. I remember mentioning like a few seasons back for Discovery that I felt like their outro after the climactic action of an episode that we'd have like 4 or 5 different little scenes of stuff, and it was almost like catching up on too much stuff. So I wasn't always necessarily like hyped for what's coming next because there was just too many options. Here they're a little more focused. It's just got that focus and punch of a 30-minute show.
Definitely.
Oh, Father, you're muted. Sorry.
Okay. My bad.
Very quiet.
Let's move on to season 2, episode 7, "The Fast and the Curious," written by Aaron McNamara, directed by Sean Bishop and Sung Shin. After using a Borg conduit to travel through time faster, they don't travel through time; they travel through space faster. But anyways, Dal and his friends find themselves at the mercy of a demanding Kazon. So what do y'all think about? There is a 1979 sci-fi cult classic that I know all 3 of us gentlemen are all big fans of. I don't know if either of y'all thought about this movie that I thought of.
Are you talking about The Black Hole?
I am talking about The Black Hole.
I did not think about that in particular.
No, neither did I.
Oh, this crazed Kazon, he's totally the dude from The Black Hole. And then the Robo faces revealed, like under the mask
that
off.
part, yes.
Yeah.
When they were revealed, actually my notes say, I have a note somewhere that says, it reminded me of the cyborg reveal of Dr. Whatever's crew members or whoever that guy was.
Cygnus Bot, I think I wrote down.
Yeah. Yeah, there we go.
Which is not what it was, but yeah, shorthand for me.
I was kind of, well, first of all, I thought the what do they call the thing? The transwarp conduit?
Yeah.
I thought that was cool to see. Like, it's a
Yeah, we've never seen it before, have we?
Locale.
No, they talk about those in Voyager, and they talk about using them, but we don't see we see like that hub at the end of Voyager, but we never see like one of these things, like that ring conduit thing.
Stargate.
and when you go through it, like you still get like, I mean, I know it's just a cool visual effect that they want to do, but like it's like Borg green in the warp field.
It looks advanced and powerful and scary and ancient, like how Borg stuff should.
Yeah.
And they said, like, there was a neat premise for it, which is the kids are 61 days out if they just go normal speed, kind of like the Voyager's slow-ass return home. And they're like, well, Gwen doesn't have, we don't know if she's got 61 days. She probably might well not. So yeah,
Did they even have rations for 61 days? Like, do they have a replicator there, or you don't know that kind of stuff.
I'd like to think so, but probably that ship was not meant for long journeys.
Yeah,
yeah. It's clearly limited on replicator tech because in the next episode they were unable to build him a very to build Zero a very good new body, like robo body.
That's true.
Or even just a less what am I trying to say, less nimble, or like a scaled down version of the same thing. Even they couldn't do that.
It's meant to do something specific. It is not a starship like a big starship.
I was a little worried when the kids arrived at the conduit and were going through it because I didn't know if I wanted to see them deal with the Borg again.
Right.
But I did get excited when it turned out to be Kazon, and that they're more scared of the Kazon than they are of the Borg. I thought it was a bold choice, but what do y'all think of that?
Go ahead, Aaron.
Well, I think they're just scared. I think if it was anybody, if it was a Klingon, if it was not a Vulcan, but somebody like who has that sort of gruff exterior, like you're scared because this person's now basically kidnapped you and is putting you into the obligatory race episode that every show in space must have.
But they were also like they specifically had a thing because they were sold into slavery by Kazon back when they went to Tars
Lamora. Yeah, so that's like when Jankum Pog said like Kazon, that's even worse than the Borg. I was like, really? Why would you think? But then when Rock Talk or someone else is like, yeah, like they sold us into slavery.
That's
I was
right.
like, okay, that is why you would be more scared of them.
Can
you go back one frame? Oh, sorry.
Were you going to note something about that, Jason?
Yeah, there's like the bottom left. That's like a weird logo. I didn't even notice that before, and I just zoomed in on it. It's kind of
something to investigate.
Is that a Kazon symbol, or I don't know.
I think it's got to be.
Fatheree, I like the glow up stuff. I like them to take a underused thing and make it cool.
Yeah.
And I wanted that to happen with the Kazon, and I don't know that I really felt that this episode accomplished it because he ultimately is a pawn.
I liked the Kazon, but I don't. This was probably my least favorite episode of the season. Definitely of the first 10. I don't know of like the entire 20, but I liked the use of the Kazon so much that I still really enjoyed that the inclusion and I liked the idea of the Kazon have become like these transwarp pirates, and that they now dominate these. That's cool. Like you have these cool, convenient transwarp conduits that can get you places much quicker that people would obviously want to use, but it comes with a really high risk of like you might wake up the Borg. Another risk is that there's these Kazon bandits that are taking over the spaceways.
But they seem more organized. That's the one thing I felt like. It's like, okay, it felt like they were more together. There was something about the way he spoke about what was happening. Like, okay, that seems like you have more of a plan than you did last time.
You're used to more of the Kazon infighting and kind of.
Is it like they've been there for years and they've built this up as like their training facility for which was also using some of the established Kazon lore. I guess we don't know much about them, but we know that they'll send Aaron Eisenberg off in the desert to do like his here's the trials you must complete to become a man type thing. So
now we should probably quick mention in our very cool in our comments that Aaron Waltke popped in. Himself.
Hi, Aaron.
Aaron, who is what would you characterize as
writer producer Aaron Waltke, informing us that the Kazon probe that attached to the Infinity displays the Kazon logo.
Kind of looks like a spider,
or the Kazon symbol, and that was the very one that our Aaron was just like, what is that? So we have confirmation. Kazon symbol.
I love that moment, by the way, when Security Murph escorts Zero. It's like the science officer is going to go look at the scary thing, and the security officer goes along to keep an eye out for any danger. I was like, oh, they understand their roles in Starfleet perfectly. It feels like I'm watching a Star Trek show.
Right, but it looks in practice it's very different because you have this little sphere person.
Because it's a little sphere with a purple slime worm riding around on top of it. But that's very much still Star Trek.
I think you're right. That's a good catch, Fatheree, how you can kind of do the similar but rather different too.
The race thing, it did feel like I'm catching up on the Bad Batch and the other Star franchise. And I feel like I just watched like the same episode where they're like, "Oh no, we're going to have to race in this race," and then one of the dudes is like, "Oh, I think I can do it," and he gets like way too into it, like Dal did here, which was
happened
like
in Voyager. It happened in Stargate.
Is there a what's the source material on that? I actually have no clue as to like what kind of source material. Is it Wacky Racers or something from back in the day?
Could be.
It's a Mad World that that movie from the 50s. But they were all like, I know that's kind of like the Cannonball Run style where celebrities are kind of in some sort of wild race. But yeah, I don't know where the genre of captured and forced to race is. Maybe there's a little bit of was it Ben-Hur in there, the chariot races and stuff.
I kept waiting for the Borg to show up in this episode, or for something like confirm that there is like Borg behind this, like the computer getting into the Kazon's brain was Borg or something. It's kind of implied that it is. It uses some of the same terms that we've heard the Borg say before, like limited beings. Like the Borg Queen said that in Star Trek First Contact. So I don't know if I kind of do like that it is mysterious. Like maybe the Kazon tried to repurpose some Borg technology and it made their software go crazy. But I feel like having like the Kazon be like this big scary threat and they build like this big scary computer and then immediately the computer like Landrews them and like it takes over and starts running the show. It's like, I agree with you, Dave. Like, I don't know if it's the Kazon glow up or not, but I just the idea of like them being like an ongoing threat and really scary to these kids, and they kind of have like a personal connection to them. I did love that.
Yeah, and I'd actually like to see more with it. This wasn't quite the episode I wanted for it, but I'm open to the idea of doing more with it. And this guy at the end, who kind of just felt like he'd been a pawn and had a little bit of nuance to his. To the voice acting and stuff was like reflected, I think, like how you can treat them in maybe a little bit deeper as things go along.
The other thing it reminded me of was the Enterprise episode Dead Stop, when they conveniently find that space station that repairs their ship after it was damaged in the Romulan minefield. But the way that station, how it was like so obsessed with like repairing things and optimizing things and was very sinister and had those grabby arms, I felt like that was kind of similar to this. So I don't know if writer-producer Aaron Walke is still in our audience. I don't know if he can share any insight on if Dead Stop might have been an inspiration with some of the choices that we saw here. But I had definitely thought about that.
My note says that the kids were forced to play a deadly game of Mario Kart on skiffs. Go ahead.
No, I was when we were talking about the Borg and everything, the robot definitely has like intonation. It feels almost like a Borg Queen-ish a little bit, and some of the verbiage is leaning toward finding its not perfection, but whatever that direction that feels like Borg.
Yeah, that was the Queen's whole like motivation was like taking the chaos and making it into perfection. It's like this constant idea of like improving, which when you work in capitalist society, that's kind of like that's what like our bosses are taught. Like, oh, you have to make more money next year than you made this year, and you have to keep growing and expanding and be be like cancer and just like just spread indefinitely. But I mean, that's like this thing's obsession. We got optimize, improve.
Yeah, I wonder if we might, if there may be a follow up on it at some point, or some revisit. I did like
notice... Zero's sacrifice moment was kind of cool. Like I'm just gonna rocket thrust my just suicide run slam into you.
I also noticed that what do you call it? There was a neat bit early on where Gwen was trying to be the negotiator type person, definitely a skill set that I think she had been building up on her own planet. And Dal, of course, goes in all headstrong and arrogant. This is definitely one of those episodes where I felt like he really needed to get smacked.
Yeah, but here we see Gwen showing better leadership and judgment when she's like, "Hey, it doesn't matter who wins. We just have to beat the pilot." And Dal being like, "Nah, I want to win."
Right. Like, you're like, "Hey,
why?
Don't you remember there was?"
Like it's like you just want to show us, like we already think you're cool. Like you don't have anything to prove here, dude. Like
right, but that's how that personality type that he is. That's how their brain functions, though. He does feel like he has to prove something, even if he doesn't.
And
I almost wondered, and I'm kind of glad they didn't go there, is that the one person who wins was going to be turned into the, taken over, and then they send the rest of them out or something like that, so he gets transformed, but like it's the horror of knowing that, or like when that happens, it just
transformed
but it was
into
kind of
like one of the bots.
Yeah, like they discovered it's like, well, you've won, and what did you win? You didn't win freedom. Like all the other people who didn't win actually get to leave, which I've seen that a couple times in shows too. So
but Fatheree, I do sort of agree. And this kind of goes to what you were saying, Aaron. There's tropes in this one and like other tropes that they could have done, but none of them. It just didn't quite hit as strong for me. So I did think this was a weaker episode in this batch. But the screenshot that we've got pulled up is another good cliffhanger ending.
There's a Klingon symbol back there, which I didn't notice until now.
It's the weird time.
She has Gwen in her quarters has a bunch of language stuff hanging up. So there's like Vulcan language and Klingon language stuff.
It's a nice touch.
As Dave was pointing out, the episode ends with Majel attempting to talk to Hollow Gwen. And instead, this is our introduction to the Loom, to our scary time monsters that we'll learn more about in the next few episodes. But they're like, oh, we're going after Gwen, and what is this? This is a hologram. This ain't what I want. But it was a way for the audience to see them without any of the characters having to deal with it. So just for us to kind of wonder about.
It feels like the Prodigy version of the big bads in the Coda books, which basically did something similar.
Right. So the recent novels that explained why the old novel continuity went away, and there's a new novel continuity that matches up with the current shows. But yeah, they basically like that timeline got destroyed. So
yeah, maybe they're the same thing. It just called something different in that timeline or something.
They were very creepy. They were like their ghostly, translucent tentacles coming through. They clearly can go through anything.
Yeah, and they can pause time. Was like the scary thing that we and we get a little bit like that scary clickety sound. They do a little bit of that in their first sequence.
A little Ovidian as well. From the two-parter with Samuel Clemens. The snake.
Yeah,
thing.
Time Zero. Yeah,
Time Zero. Thank you. Yeah. It's got a little bit of that.
I can
feel
see that.
To it,
yeah, it has that same kind of glow. I didn't notice that at all until right now, but I think that's not accidental. I think that was like intentional. They have like the same type of translucent glow. When
that's what I thought they were going to be at first.
Yeah, when they're in that kind of that intangible state, like going through walls, it looks a lot like the way those creatures looked in Time Zero.
Couple of quick comments. One, Aaron says the Loom have. And he writes many names. He's got the capitalizations to suggest the eerie reading of it. So that's an interesting thing. Aaron also mentioned that it was Dal's latent Klingon DNA making him desire victory at all costs. That's an interesting bit there too.
He craves success. He craves Qapla'.
Yeah, and quite related to that. One of our commenters just wanted to compliment how Gwen said, this is LJGDT in the comment, says, the way Gwen says Stovacor, which I'm not going to be able to say it the cool way she did, in this episode, and he gives it like the little chef's kiss little emojis. Because, she like didn't just drop it in there, she said it right.
Yeah. I love cool Aaron's comment about the sound design too of the Loom.
Oh yeah, let's see. Let me pull that up. The sound designers used an Aztec death whistle combined with cicada whirs to create the sound of the Loom. That is wild and
that's exactly what I thought it sounded like actually. So that's cool. I have no idea. I've never heard of an Aztec death whistle, but I kind of want one now.
Yeah, I don't know what that is, but yeah, Father, you're always saying like you say everything sounds like an Aztec death whistle, though.
That is true. That is true.
Like if you know one thing about Fatheree, it's that.
That's right. It's
always
he's either talking about 47 or an Aztec death whistle.
Let's talk about season 2, episode 8. Is there in beauty no truth? That's a fun title, obviously.
Yeah, a little flippy flip.
Of is there in truth no beauty, which I always have wanted to put a comma in that sentence somewhere, but I'm not sure where. But This one was written by Keith Sweet II, directed by Roland Lee and Andrew L. Smith. The crew detours to a colony of non-corporeal entities who offer Zero an opportunity to obtain a physical body. Janeway discovers Dal's real intentions. I did like that we got like these two little, Planet of the Week episodes in here. And I loved that in all of the months that we were, waiting for Prodigy season 2 and other countries were getting to see it. And then when we finally get to see trailers and stuff, I saw them like, running around with this green skinned, skinny alien that I didn't recognize. I had no idea that was Zero, and that Zero gets this flesh and blood body. I was so happy that this was like a pleasant surprise to me. But what do y'all think about Is There in Beauty No Truth?
As far as the people go, the first thing I thought of when we saw the trailer was the land people of the Argo in TAS's ambergris element, because they have ones that didn't evolve to go or didn't choose to go underwater, and I imagine they'd look something like that, which is interesting. But
very Aquan looking.
Yeah, no, I'm glad it wasn't. It had like one of those, we're not going to tell them. Blah. The thing that they ended up hiding from them was not as
sinister as it sounded.
Yeah,
actually.
Exactly.
I was worried about that too, because this episode felt like it had, this is, and just to kind of broadly describe it, this is, the episode where they go to a planet where Zero can get a corporeal body. It's a colony of non-corporeal entities. Yep. And they've something about the nature of the rings around the planet and its cool planetary energies and all that.
It's kind of a cool Star Trek Insurrection thing about like the rings of the planet makes the weird thing work.
That planet is my background of the week for right now.
Cool.
I thought that was very cool looking. I loved its double ring set. But
do you want to go to the Feast of Senses and smell Jankum Pog's armpits?
Yes to the first part, no to the second. but yeah, so they offer to Zero to get a corporeal body in the form that they have, which are these lean humanoid green skinned beings. And I feel like there's pretty obvious metaphor going on here for like transitioning. And the opportunities and feeling how strongly Zero felt that this was the right thing. And I did get worried a little bit with same as you did, Aaron, though. I was like, oh, are they going to realize, is it going to be like the people who are otherwise so helpful and trying to help them experience this new thing? Are they going to be sinister? I'm like, I don't know if I like that. And it really wasn't. There was about experiencing, a certain level of fear but I'm still turning it over a little in my head, but it was not the danger of death. It was more, you will have to surmount this and decide if you can deal with the highs and lows, I guess.
I also thought it was nice that none of the, like, no, Zero, think about it, don't do that. There was none of it, if it is a metaphor for transitioning, the friends were very supportive.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I don't know that, sometimes there's not one-to-one
Yeah.
things. It's the same way that the Trill incorporated elements of it, but like we're not intended probably that way.
Yeah, I'm just saying that they were supportive of his choice, which was cool.
Yeah, I
you
really
can see
like
that like a common, I could see in a show made 10, 15 years ago where somebody would have a dissenting viewpoint.
I'm going to mention Jill's comment, just saying, I loved how Majel immediately touched Zero's face when they had a body. That was a very cool thing. There was a lot of really lovely touches in this one, and fun and like actually joyous scenes, which is sometimes something you don't always get in these. It's a bit of a break episode in some ways. Instead of being chased and scared and sad the whole time, they had to get to have a little bit of relief and fun and like and some amazing happiness for Zero.
Until they are chased and they have to save their life.
Yeah,
right.
you do see them.
One chase.
Not beyond Zero though, but like the whole crew, you do see them kind of get to take a break and have a breather on this big adventure to find Chakotay. And Rock Talk and Jankum and Zero are like dancing on the dance floor, like having a good time. And you see Gwen and Dal's kind of like they're like the big brother and big sister. Like they're kind of like, they almost kind of feel like they're like the parents. They're like mom and dad, like watching like the kids have fun. But you kind of do get like a sense of like they're also enjoying seeing like their crew that they're leading, like celebrate and have a good time.
Yeah. A little bit of like kind of a little moment of early maturity or quasi maturity. I don't want to give Dal too much credit.
There are a lot of really cool, like, striking visuals, like the way that the planet itself looked. I love that Prodigy still gives us these gorgeous, planetary landing sequences. These kids tend to stay to ships that are small enough to park on planets, and it makes the show a lot prettier. So I'm thankful for that.
It's a beautiful planet. The designers did some great work on it.
Yeah, the flowers that like defy gravity and float up. That was real trippy to see.
And the big old manta ray whale shark thing.
The running of the Nazamon.
Pre-Discovery, I did posters that were like that. It was like all very like cool ring planets and stuff like flying over like a river of green liquid and stuff like that, and then the show was nothing like that.
Were these Star Trek posters or more
Star Trek fan posters?
Okay,
no, it was Discovery fan posters early before we had any. I mean, the ship changes in the poster if you look at it. We didn't know any okay, now it's longer, it eats nacelles and all this stuff. So yeah, but it was fun when they were looking for Zero and realized, oh, these people all kind of look the same.
Yeah. And I thought it was ballsy for Dal to be like, I guess I'm going up in this thing's mouth to get my friend, Is there really like much consequence though for the non-corporeals? Like if they die in these bodies, could they just like make a new body? So maybe it's like maybe it's not even like a high stakes thing for them, but
and the question is like they've evolved past all of this. Why would you want? It's kind of like let I need to have like a prehensile tail now or something. It's like
that's always how it was presented, especially in like 60s things, that somehow the highest evolution of people would be to become energy. But like we're like actually in the way we perceive things. I know the whole idea is in the far future we just won't even perceive things the same. But like we're extremely tactile people. We like food. We like touch. We like sex. All those things. And so the idea that it'd be like, oh, it's going to be so great to be an energy being, that sounds like a bit like the classic image of heaven where you're like, oh yeah, isn't it going to be great sitting around on a cloud playing a harp? No.
It's like the lower decks version when what's his name was ascending, and it's like it's painful or whatever.
Yeah, but I thought that was cool that like there'd be some like I don't want to say like backsliders, but whatever you would call like some people who would be like, but I don't know, maybe I want to be corporeal like the ancient ancestors were. Maybe I do want to be able to like taste food and like see things through eyes and not just by gauging. It would have been
cool if we had seen Zero like express more interest in that earlier, like in the series, even in season 1 or something. It seems like it kind of came out of just they looking at one girl's hand on another guy's hand, like I think at the first episode. It's like, oh, I want to feel. Okay.
Yeah, Zero's kind of longing for it, which to me, I didn't read that as a like a gender transition thing, but as like a disability thing, and Zero kind of being like, I wish that I didn't have this disability, and this is kind of them like getting like a prosthetic arm or a hearing aid or something like that was kind of how they
for sure that there's elements of that. I think it's one of these things where you can kind of lens it a few different ways, no doubt. I wanted to quick mention something that Jill said in here about I guess it was at the feast where is it? Right, at the banquet that Jill wrote, it looked amazing, but Dal was more interested in Gwen's hand, and she wrote, "Aw," and that's true. There's a lot of nice character moments in this episode.
They're always like holding hands or like standing next to each other, like they sit next to each other, like they feel like actual like a teenage boyfriend and girlfriend. Like
they just stand close to each other even if they're not doing anything. It's just that
proximity
thing.
They like that proximity. Yeah.
Right, but they're not like the creepy kids in line at Six Flags who are making out for like 20 minutes.
No, yeah, they're not gonna...
Yeah, I don't want to know that.
They're better than that. We get some Voyager stuff, though. We get to see Parisia's squares in action, which I was thrilled to finally see Parisia's squares. And it looks so cool, and it looks way cooler than a live-action show would ever get to do it, so I'm glad it was in an animated show.
And there's the ion mallet that in the episode, the real life, the doctor was Belle was looking for. It's like, where did you leave it last? You know?
The doctor's fake daughter kept losing. Yeah. It's fun to just think about like Tasha Yar and Worf like playing this game with like the moving platforms and having to use these ion mallets and like beating like the other team at that star base. I was like, I don't know, this is like so cool to know that like
and
that
you
happened.
Totally see them ramping up the factor of like making those things move faster or maybe up higher or something like that. Just like that would make it, the skill level would have to grow.
It's that shared universe fun where they get to decades after the initial mention of this kind of fill it out, and now we can retroactively imagine it with those characters from decades ago.
I was literally a baby when that episode aired, season 1, 1987. But
I was in high school.
The idea of like the gig is up, the hollow duplicates aren't gonna pass. I don't know. I was kind of relieved that was addressed so quickly, that it was only like one episode of that, and then in the next episode they figure it out.
I felt a little bad when Janeway is like, deactivate holograms, because I was like, oh, these guys feel like they're real. I'm like, they're dead.
Yeah.
Or like the dog
two victim.
When the doctor realized it was his own fault, when it's like, oh no, like they got this idea from my Hollow novel, and then when he says, I've been betrayed by my own brilliant storyline.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite lines in the whole series so far.
Egotism even amidst guilt.
Writer-producer Aaron Walke, you should tell us who in the Star Trek Prodigy writers' room said that out loud. I've been betrayed by my own brilliant storylines. I feel like that must be something that someone said.
Here's a question that I had. So when they're telling, like, when Dal is going through all the different senses, he has sight, sound. Where did this list go? Sight, sound, smell, touch, and taste, and then fear. Like, well, if fear is a sense or whatever, it's like, so with love and then jealousy and like all that, like
those five
that's
senses,
an emotion that's different than senses.
Yeah, but the five senses that they taught us in first grade, like those are kind of BS anyways, because it's like there's way more. Like I have like a sense of like temperature, of like heat and cold, and I have like a sense of time. Like I can tell you if it's been like about 5 minutes or about 30 minutes. You know, I'd be able to tell you which. Like we actually have like a shitload of senses, and it's just easier to narrow it down to 5, I think.
Yeah, it's going to be weirder when we become incorporeal energy beings in the future.
Then, like, how will we even like have emotions at that point? Because like most of the time, if you're like happy or angry or sad or like a big part of it is just like what the chemicals and electrons are doing in your brain. So when you don't even have like those physical components of your brain, if you're just pure energy, like would you even have emotions at that point? I don't know.
I mean, wasn't Trelane and Charlie X and other people clearly had some drives and energies going on, so it doesn't seem like you immediately become zen when you become non-corporeal.
I'll have to find out for myself when I ascend someday.
Yeah, definitely get back to us on that, Father.
Yeah.
Did y'all now experience the sense of fear?
Y'all have anything else to say on is there in beauty no truth before we get into the devourer of all things?
Okay, so since this is me just picking apart the what it said, if the non-corporeal beings live for thousands of years, right? They're pretty long lived. Mm-hmm. Okay, so if they say it's like, oh, if you leave the planet, you'll degrade. The body will, maybe they just mean the body will age, because
you'll go on with
just normal age. It's like, so it might be forever.
News for you kids, you all have a body that's degrading.
Well, yeah, that too.
Yes, but I just only experience a pathetic 80 or 100 years. Not
I kind of think of the doctor was going to say something like that. It's like, I'm sorry, you're only going to live 80 or 90 years.
Right. The only thing I wanted to add, Father, was just that I really like the visual design of the Nazimon. I like those kind of filter feeder looking animals. It definitely evoked a manta ray, and I thought maybe a whale shark too. And I liked its multiple appendages and stuff like that. It made me want to play Shadow of the Colossus and fight giant monsters. But this one seemed seemed I don't know. Aaron Walke in the comments said that it might dissolve you like a sarlacc inside the stomach, but I thought it looked kind of cute.
It looks cute, but you don't want to get swallowed up by it.
Yeah.
I would. By the way, if there was a video game and this was like a level on it, though, I think it would definitely be a cool sequence.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, bears can be cute too. You don't want to be swallowed up by them.
Absolutely. If not friend, why friend shaped?
Yeah.
The episode ends with another cool cliffhanger, like we were talking about, with the reveal of Hollow Gwen being terrified of the loom and giving like that haunting shriek before she's deactivated. And then in the next episode, the Devourer of All Things, we see we start to see the loom unleashed in kind of our 2-part, I guess what would have been like a mid-season finale if they had only released 10 episodes. This would have been like a hell of a mid-season finale, I think, these two.
Yeah.
By the way,
forgot this was in the last episode at the end and not the beginning of this one, but when Hollow Gwen got all freaked out, it reminded me a little bit of how the Doctor had that recursive problem where they kept erasing his memory because it was just driving him crazy.
Oh yeah,
he
kept like breaking. Well, yeah, that's
was this on an episode of Voyager? Or?
Yes.
Yeah. But in a season you haven't gotten to yet.
Gotcha.
Sorry.
No, that's all right. I'm not worried about stuff like that. I was just going to mention that's quite the title for. I know it's. I don't want to for a kid show. The Devourer of All Things.
Yeah,
it reminds me.
The Jihad.
Of actually it may be a paraphrase, but the riddle game with Frodo and Gollum. One of the riddles is time. Or the answer is time. And I always remember this. I don't know if it's from the book or from a movie version, but it starts out, this thing all things devours, birds, beasts, trees, flowers. And if it will ultimately be revealed to be time. I wonder if that was bouncing around in anybody's head.
That's that is the Devourer of All Things. That's time.
Time.
Yeah. I was thinking like this is like talking about the loom, but no, it's talking about time.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Part 1 was written by Jennifer Murrow and Sung Shin. Part 2 by Aaron J. Walke, Tex-Trek audience member Aaron J. Walke, and directed by
best
Sean
known
Bishop.
for.
Yes. Well, we had his daughter on as well at one point.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
She was not very talkative, but pleasant.
I really loved the big stuff in these 2 episodes. I thought it was like really great use of the Trek universe and bringing in Wesley and tying in like the Travelers and Gary 7 and all the stuff that they set up in Picard. And then that was like a cool opportunity for another show to like pick that ball up and run with it and do some cool shit. And Prodigy saw that opportunity and grabbed it up. I love it.
It's another bit of franchise fun where somebody else does the setup and one of the other shows takes the shot. We got I guess guest Wesley in Picard, and here we got like character Wesley.
I think we got Will Wheaton in Picard, unfortunately.
Yeah.
He's actually Will Wheaton. Like the first scene when he's like. He keeps saying he's very apologies, but he's like very like California, and that he says like a lot. I mean, I do that too. But when he's like, "Can you point this at like that direction and like turn it counterclockwise?" but it dialed down a little bit, and I think that could have just been like Wesley being just kind of like goofy and like, oh, I got to be like fun, cool dude to talk to these hip teenagers and being like kind of dorky.
It feels. A little bit like he also is just coming out of quarantine from COVID. It's like that kind of.
Yeah, he's got that energy.
Yeah. So you want to talk to somebody and you forget everything and you try to say it all at one time and it sounds horrible and in your brain you're going, oh no, I didn't mean to say that.
In his face, they make him look like older Will Wheaton, like he's around like 50 years old now in real life. I think this is meant to be Will Wheaton from his perspective. This is after Picard season 2, when he's walking around in 2024 and recruiting more travelers, I guess. I think this is from his perspective after those events and after the time war. And after whatever big trauma that was, and he's kind of, I don't know, got some like PTSD or some like Time War trauma, very much in line with modern Doctor Who, like we were talking about earlier. We can't get away from the Doctor Who talk.
Well, he's got like a Doctor Who kind of like coat or something on, but he's wearing a classic kind of ugly Wesley sweater.
Yeah, so
it's the same sweater that he had on the Enterprise. He's just grown into it.
It's Salmon Supreme is the name of that sweater.
It is?
If people follow me on socials at Tex-Trek, but my partner Taylor, who I'm showing all of Star Trek 2 in chronological order, after seeing all of Wesley's sweaters on Star Trek The Next Generation, she actually reviewed all and named all of them. And this one is Salmon Supreme. And I think she ranked it a 9 out of 10, deducted 1 point because of the color. But she was a big fan of the texturing on it, I think.
I love the fact that he's like, do you need a sweater? I have a lot of them.
But the fact that he used like sweater metaphor to explain, like tugging on the tapestry, so it kind of ties into TNG with that. But it's the same. It's almost like verbatim the explanation of what the travelers are that he gives in Picard season 2, except now with like a more emphasis on like the sweater analogy. So I thought that was like very, very cool writing. That when I saw that tweet pointing that out, comparing like the two conversations and how like, oh yeah, this is kind of like the same explanation that he gave in Picard. I was like, oh, that's so cool. That's how we work in like real life when we give like our same, like if someone like asked me about like this podcast, like I have like the same explanation for it every time. It might not be word for word identical, but it would be like pretty similar. I thought that was like really cool.
What do you think, or where do you think in the timeline for Wesley this is? Is this before or after he meets Corey?
I think this is after that.
Okay.
I like the visualization of the timeline where it's not just a line with little branches coming out, but it's like a 3-dimensional thing where some branches go to the side too.
Yeah.
It visually looked very neato.
And we've seen that in Voyager and Enterprise and Strange New Worlds. We've seen time people have those types of displays and stuff. And it is so Doctor Who, but the idea of like there was like this big time war and this guy like stayed behind and all. It's like he's like the Time Lord who remained and everyone else is gone. But to be fair, Doctor Who borrowed a lot. Watch Doctor Who episodes that came out before Assignment Earth, and then watch the Doctor Who episodes that came out after Assignment Earth. And you're like, oh, in a way, Star Trek kind of taught Doctor Who how to do Doctor Who. So I think it's okay for us to like borrow things back from Doctor Who. Like we gave Doctor Who their sonic screwdriver, damn it. Like they got that from Gary 7.
Shots fired.
It was like 2 weeks later that Doctor Who came out with the sonic screwdriver. I actually was going to bring that up. I've got a graphic somewhere, but it's like a very small time period in between. And obviously we don't think that the production companies were talking to each other, but so I don't think they had. Well, Doctor Who is kind of on the fly. Maybe they could have come up with it before.
Yeah, maybe so. In the comments, Aaron Waltke mentions that he co-wrote the monologue in Picard. I guess that's Wesley's monologue, as well as this one. So that's very cool. He's got a big hand in Wesley as Traveler.
Makes sense that it
is super cool.
Was it like quantum time ziggurat? I forget how they called it, but it was something like that.
I would like to see that when it wasn't destroyed. It'd be interesting.
Yeah. Can
I share real quick a picture for a little Easter egg that I found?
Go for it.
Okay. This course is then going to... no. Hang on, sorry. Just keep talking.
Yeah. Well, I was going to mention one of the things that struck me about this episode, that the biggest thing is that the Loom aliens, or the time parasite things, they came on full scary in this episode. This was the one where they were described as cosmic scavengers that fed on dying timelines. And they started, like... is it this one or is it the next one where they, like, really go at people? And, like,
I guess the next one is when, like, they start wiping out Janeway's crew. But it's like I was saying last week, like, the the stakes are so high in season 2 of Prodigy. Like you don't really see any death in season 1 other than the diviner, and you see so much in season 2.
Yeah, they were scaring this, and we've got the image pulled up. They actually there's cool visuals on them that there's like they're like charcoal black, and then they're also like pink tendrils and pink and gold sort of tendrils coming out of that. It looks a little bit like some of the weird chaos monsters in Warhammer 40K's dark future setting. By the way, Aaron, just jump in if you find it.
There it is. So basically, if you look at his little control panel, it has kind of the vibe of Ziggy, not Ziggy, but the hand link, I think they called it, for Al to connect to Ziggy in the future.
What was this?
Quantum Leap.
Quantum Leap, yes.
Which also kind of is an Enterprise nod, because when what's his name, Dean Stockwell showed up on Enterprise, he was talking to Scott Bakula and Malcolm Reed with he had like this little like pad thing that he kept working on as he was talking to them, and it was very similar to what he looked like in Quantum Leap with that little weird colored tricorder, whatever his machine was called.
And in the books that we were talking about earlier, the Coda, Wesley has basically a device that is just like the thing in Voyagers, which was a TV show in 1980, and Omnicron, and it was called the same thing. And I was like, I asked Dayton Ward, I'm like, is this what I think it is? He's like, yes, that's what it is.
I have a quick question as far as lensing the ziggurat. Is it, that room that they went into that looked like it had retro 60s look, which I guess, was that a callback to Gary Seven's?
I think it is Gary Seven after I looked at it more carefully.
So Gary
like
Seven,
a lava lamp and all that.
Yeah, in Assignment Earth, which did air, it was the season 2 finale of Star Trek: The Original Series, 1968. I guess that would have been June of '68. But Gary Seven says, I've been training to come here and operate on Earth for like this organization that I work for. These aliens that want to make sure that things stay in line and move along according to the program. So this is the room, I guess, where he had been training in, and then when he's done with his training, he's sent to Earth, and he met Kirk and Spock and all of that stuff.
Did they just replicate this room on Earth then? Because this is his office that they walked into.
Yeah, it's a similar layout to what we. I don't think it's exact, but it's very.
Very that's why I was confused at first, because people were like, "Is this the same room?" I'm like, "I don't think so." But
it was like his training room.
If it was all
looking
literal,
at that newspaper. Oh, sorry.
I was just going to say, if it was all literal, or if it was a little bit like that episode of Voyager where the Q were at war and it was lensed as like a sort of like Civil War kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it was just like, well, the actual quantum ziggurat is transdimensional time ziggurat is beyond our comprehension, but it looks like this for people to interact with. But I think it was meant to generally be literal. Like that was the room, like you said, Father. I think probably where he trained. And there was literally a sort of vault-like door protecting them from, the... You
get to see in the vault this time, which was kind of cool. You could see stuff on the side, like shelves and stuff. I think that the newspaper that was on about the launch of...
Apollo 7, right?
Apollo 7.
7 or 8?
Yeah. I think it was 7. And that was in March of 68. Or sorry, October of 68. And the episode with Gary Seven took place in March of 68.
Oh,
so there was that group of that length of time between those. So I don't know if he came back and he was still, the newspaper came from there. If you also notice, the newspaper doesn't have any words on the back. So maybe it's just like supposed to be a prop inside the office. The weird living room.
Aaron posts I assume he's goofing, but it's quite the tease. He says, Gary Seven was hiding in the closet, just out of sight.
He's like, I don't want to get involved with this. I've already had problems with Kirk and Spock, and I'm done.
Right. He's like, I'm just an agent. I'm not. This is outside of my purview. Probably shouldn't be seen by him.
With his cat. That's right.
Yeah, Joanne Robertson in the comments said that.
Yeah, I forgot about. We still need Isis explained. They could have Isis show up with Wesley at some point. He could have this cat that turns into a lady or something.
Not too late. Not too late. Yeah.
What do y'all think about Janeway defying Jellicoe?
Second favorite line, I think, in the series.
Which one?
I'm going through a transwarp tunnel. It's like, well, technically we are.
Yeah, it's like that does seem to happen in Star Trek a lot, but it was very satisfying after seeing Jellicoe, and I enjoy the Jellicoe. I think it's really cool the show is using him, but seeing him boss around Janeway for 2 seasons, it's like you need like this moment of when she's going to, and her calling him Edward too. Like he called her Catherine. And like you kind of think that like this is like a power move he's gonna use, and she's like, no, like you can't. You're not gonna like first name me and expect me not to first name you back.
Edward.
Yeah, I'm a fan of Jellicoe, and I kind of don't like him being just like a pretty straightforward heavy. I want him to have a little bit more to him. So I was lightly disappointed in that. I just want my Jellicoe to be a little bit more.
You want Jellicoe to be more of like a guy the audience roots for.
You know what? I just want
correctly.
to show that he's capable of growth and he's not just one thing.
Or compassion or something where it's like, hey, I know that this is really heavy and it's weighing on you and you can't. It's like, believe me, I understand. I lost a wife or whatever. It's something that humanizes him. He's like, but
he lost a ship, by the way. One of the crashed ships at the Kazon's racetrack was the Cairo, his Excelsior class ship he commanded in Chain of Command.
Oh, interesting.
Before he transferred to the Enterprise. So.
I did not remember that.
I want to know what he was doing in the Dominion War. I think he's probably like commanding like a wing of Galaxy class ships, or like he had to have a big role in the Dominion War, right? If he's still a big deal in Starfleet all these years later,
right? Yeah.
Maybe that novel. Get David Mack or Dayton Ward or someone on that novel. I think there's an interesting story to tell there.
That'd be interesting.
In the comments, somebody asks, "Is Jellicoe head of Starfleet?" Is that...
No, I don't think he would be head of Starfleet, but he's a higher ranking admiral than Janeway. But he's not. I don't think he's commander in chief of like the entire
Would
fleet.
That be Picard at this point? No,
I don't think it'd be. I think Picard is only involved with like the Romulan task force. Okay. So I don't think we know who the commander in chief is in this year.
Commander O.
No, she's the head of security.
That's true.
Commodore O. The Ensign Middleton, the red shirt who gets red shirted. That was kind of a cool way to like show again, it's something that I've seen in Doctor Who, when Rory got erased and spoilers for Doctor Who? But yeah, exactly. And I thought that was going to happen to Majel. I thought that like Wesley was seriously going to leave her out there, out of the safe room that they're hiding in, and let her get erased. And all these kids are going to be like, "You can't do that. That's our friend." And then they'd be like, "Oh, what were we talking about?"
At least it makes losing somebody is not painful.
It was scary though. It was messed up because I guess everybody, even if you, no matter what, you kind of want to be remembered and like, it's like nothing.
Yeah,
people wouldn't remember like your best friend, your family. They now lost every memory of you. That's. If I were watching this, by the way, and I were a kid, I think that would be one of the scariest things I'd seen.
I think,
and it still was as an adult.
Yeah. That there would be a Dr. Crusher moment where if these time monsters were slower at like taking people or more stealthy about it, like suddenly she's like, "Why is there 7 people on this ship?" It's like something's wrong.
The telepathic phone call to Zero. That was cool that they talked so much about how they had a strong connection beforehand. It made all of this feel a lot more appropriate. When like, why would Janeway let this kid go on this dangerous away mission? But it's like, oh, that's a good point. Like, she does have a telepathic connection to one of the people we're looking for. Yeah. So, and then Tysus like, oh, I swear on the. I will vouch for her in the names of my ancestors whose names are recorded on the wall of the fallen heroes or whatever. I wonder, is that like from like a book or something, like some Andorian lore that it might be new, or it might be some like deep cut to something I'm not aware of. But
in the same way that Vulcans have both their like very cerebral...
it is from a book.
Okay, nice. Vulcans have that very cerebral mode, but then they that underlying it is these kind of passionate traditions, and they're kind of almost ritualized elements of them. This was like that moment for I keep forgetting Tysus. Is it?
Yeah.
where yes, he's a very intellectual kind of guy, but he busted out that full Andorian kind of martial training and honor and stuff.
That's scary. I think that'd be scary for a kid too when you see Tysus is scared. When he's like, "What do you mean you don't remember Ensign Middleton?" Like, oh my god, this is terrible. I was like, well, shit. If you're terrified, then I should be terrified
it's
too.
Not good. It's not good.
Jill 47 in the audience was talking about how when Majel sees Zero for the first time with their physical body, and what I thought stood out in that moment was when Majel recognizes that it is Zero. From seeing in their eyes, they still have the glowy Zero effect that we would see in like the little window of the robot sphere. I thought that was a good idea. In order for it to still feel like Zero, you just do that same visualization in the person's eyes.
That's I hadn't quite realized that as maybe obvious as that might be, but I hadn't thought about that. That's very cool.
I didn't realize it till the third time I watched this episode earlier today.
But it's also neat because we have such a common adage of saying the eyes are the window to the soul, and the idea that someone with an emotional connection, a deeper emotional connection, would be able to spot you through your eyes alone is a neat idea. It's very romantic.
That even happens in Doctor Who too. It's like, oh, you're the Doctor.
I was saying earlier how I thought the Infinity was a pretty cool ship, but we bid it farewell in this episode, in the Devourer of All Things Part 2, and it is ate by the Loom. I don't know how... That's almost like losing a ship. It's not quite as bad as like losing a character, but it's like the next worst thing,
Yeah, we that had gotten the kids through some tough times, and it is a cool ship.
It was like their proxy protostar, which I guess they no longer need, because at the end of this episode they find Chakotay in the protostar, and it feels appropriate to have like the protostar back in Prodigy, and it's like, that's y'all's hero ship. Y'all got to go get in y'all's ship, But,
yeah, it's true.
Somewhere in here, when somebody gets eaten, there's the Wilhelm scream as well.
That was Middleton. That was Middleton.
Oh, was Middleton? Okay.
Yeah. But at least Middleton got a name. There are some red shirts getting wiped out on Voyager that never got a name. But
they were running towards the turbo lift, and they disappear before they get there.
And then Janeway has no memory of them.
Yeah.
But the coolest thing in this episode for me, and the Devourer of All Things Part 2, was Mama Bear Admiral Janeway coming in as just like this like unrelenting, powerful, protective force that's there to save you. I thought was so powerful. Like I was just saying, I've watched these episodes 3 times, and every time I was like, I know that I really like this moment, but then like when I'm watching, I'm like, oh, I forgot how much I love all of this. Like that whole sequence, like her in the shuttlecraft when Tom Paris taught me this move, but this next one is when I came up with myself, and like all of that was so badass.
Yeah, she's like the one person who can like go up against sort of like I'm not physically as in like mano, but like who knows kind of how to bloody the nose of the Loom right now. And, we saw way back on the trailer, we saw Janeway back in the kind of the action hero tank top from Voyager.
From Macrocosm, I loved that.
And so that's back here. And there was a lot of very cool action sequences in this episode. Joel in the audience calls it Borg Slayer Janeway.
I love that. I saw a meme recently that said, Picard has nightmares about the Borg. The Borg have nightmares about Janeway, and I love that meme. I think that's like Janeway beat the Borg up so bad that they couldn't do anything but like lay around for 20 years, and then like old geriatric John Luke shows up to finish off the Queen. But after Janeway had already just like beaten her up to the point where she was almost dead, like she lowered the health bar all the way down to where only needed like one more attack, and then Picard just went and did like the most like basic attack and claimed victory.
Right. Not realizing that she had basically opened the jar already.
Yeah.
I love that when she crashes the little shuttle, she's like, "This used to be easier."
Yeah. That was like to remind us, but we didn't forget she's a little older now than she was on Voyager.
Let's see. You know what? I was looking through my notes, and I had made a note about how they really build up the threat level of the Loom in this one, and also it builds up how badass Janeway is to stand up to them. But also I had a little note because didn't they find is it Counselor Noam?
Yeah.
he was like hiding somewhere.
Which he's a counselor now, so that the doctor can be the doctor. But I want the doctor to be the doctor,
That's
so
right.
that's good.
I was just
I
like,
see.
has this guy counseled anyone? I feel like he might not be great at it.
Nah. At one
But I
point,
did like-
didn't he? He's
I
like,
liked him,
I
like,
knew it all
cowering.
along, or whatever. Like,
Yeah,
okay.
right.
When he cowered in the cargo bay, but then like when the kids caught him cowering, then the loom came in there. He's gotten in between the loom and the kids. Like he was still going to be protective.
Oh, that's a good point. That's a good point.
Yeah.
You got to give him that one. I also had a note that I guess Zero like experienced some real fear in this, and that it was really cool to see Majel
And he enjoyed it.
to comfort them.
Or they enjoyed it, sorry.
Yeah, Majel, I had not. It's funny, as even though I was like, okay, Majel is going to be a recurring persona in the show, and I'm like, now there's going to be some link to Zero, or possibly romantically. Oh, and I was like, oh, Majel might be like on the team, like kind of pretty much an honorary Protostar member at this point, or it's feeling like.
I haven't watched it to. Oh,
go ahead. Oh well, yeah. What were you saying, Aaron?
I was gonna say I haven't watched it to the end, but this could be one of those things where they set up Gwen to be able to stay on her home planet and become a ruler, and then they have a replacement Gwen.
Interesting.
But I have not seen it. I have only
Possibility,
seen
yeah,
it through-
yeah. Like don't blab
this
in the
one.
audience, please.
Yeah.
But I think that's a solid guess there.
That is kind of her original function in the first 5 episodes when Gwen is separated.
Yeah.
They kind of fit her in with the group and send her on that Chakotay Adric mission, and she basically is like, oh, she's gonna be like the tall girl that argues with Dal sometimes, is basically like her function.
But
But
she's also their linguist and so much more. I don't want her to go.
yeah, I
the-
think there's room for the two of them on whatever ship they might
Well, it's
end
just
up
like-
serving on.
Reminds me of Talin. And so it's like we're like, oh, somebody's gonna have to leave, but no, she just got incorporated into the group.
Yeah, but like the adding the Vulcan girl to your group goes all the way back to the Wrath of Khan with Savick, and then
Yeah.
they kind of ditch her in Star Trek 4, and just like,
Yeah.
okay, we'll never see you again, bye. And so I don't want to see that with Majel, and I'm glad that Wesley saw like, oh no, the show needs 7 characters, not 6, so I'm gonna send her to Chakotay also. And my
That was cool.
my convenient machine that will send you to wherever destiny needs you to be.
With the Borath crystals and the Orb of Time.
I
Somehow.
love-
I guess, like, did they get borrowed?
That was cool though. Like if you're powered with like that stuff, I believe that
Yeah.
that machine will work. And I love that they called it Borath crystals instead of time. We all made fun of like
Yeah.
Discovery for like time crystal. You can, although I do have to look at like Deep Space Nine Orb of Time. Like that's not that different from time
No.
crystal. Maybe we should ease up on Discovery, but Borath crystal sounds way better than time crystals.
Yeah.
Now, where did that name come from?
When well, that's the name of the planet, the Klingon planet that the time
Gotcha.
crystals come from.
Yes, that does sound better.
But that's how Wesley described them here.
Yeah,
Um,
that was cool.
Wesley gets his own Janeway moment of sort of let
Yeah.
me hold him off for you.
Yeah, we
when
get
you
to
guys
see
get
Wesley Crusher and Captain Janeway on screen together. So like I think
Right,
it'd be
she
so
knows him.
crazy if I could go back in time, say 20 years, and tell myself like, hey, Fatheree of 2004, I know it sucks that Enterprise is going to be canceled in a year and you're not going to have any Star Trek on TV for a while, but if you wait 20 years, there's going to be an animated Nickelodeon produced Star Trek about this purple boy and a Tellarite that farts a lot and a slime worm, and they are going to team up with Wesley Crusher to find Chakotay, who came back from the Delta Quadrant but then got lost again on a different ship. But Wesley Crusher is going to take these characters and go find them, and it's going to be one of the best seasons of Star Trek you've ever watched. I don't know how I would react to that.
Yeah, I was like, that is really horrible fan fiction, and I do not want to see that. Like, is it a fever dream? What are you, but if you describe it like that, it's like, to somebody back then, it would be like, okay, sure.
Yeah, you would assume that the person is some sort of temporal Cold War manipulator, just trying to alter the past.
So you won't. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So never say like a Star Trek Doctor Who crossover really isn't all that bonkers, you know.
No.
If we think about it. So.
There was a line real quick I forgot from the Doctor when he was on the ship. It's like, take 20 milligrams of vengeance, you otherworldly tyrant. That was
a good line. I liked that, and I liked the "I'm a doctor, not an assembly" line.
Yeah.
They might be getting a little too frequent with the "I'm a doctor, not a what."
That was not the time for that kind of joke.
Or maybe
I guess he didn't really know how dangerous it was. Maybe, I don't know.
Or at least like limit it. Like he shouldn't. Like I don't want him to like say that like too often.
3
maybe
times
like
a show.
one or two a season, maybe at most. So I think do we get 3? I think maybe.
I think we've had.
There's
3.
at least 2.
A doctor, not a bellboy or whatever.
Not a butler. Yeah,
butler.
Than here.
Yeah.
Space them out a little bit more. At least a season between them. I think.
I can get behind that. That's like a little overkill. And Father, I see you've pulled up the slide from the so Wesley like figures out that I thought this was, by the way, a little MCU, a little Thanos-ish. That sort of like there's one sort of the infinite worlds. There's like only one where they were able to write the timeline.
Yeah, where the prime timeline wouldn't end in tragedy and chaos and devastation.
Right.
Well, and not on a giant galactic scale, because it does have some crappy things happen when the burn happens.
That's true. but
it would stop the loom from coming in and eating the universe.
Got it. And one of the key things is that Majel needed to be part of the team. That was like kind of part of the ingredients to making this happen. And the kids go, and I don't know exactly what he does. He teleports them through space and time somewhere to this really amazing looking planet where it looks like they're on some sort of deeply red sand dune, but it looks like it's above the clouds, and the protostar looks crashed on it. It's such a cool image. The protostar looks all kind of overgrown and rusted, but it's beautifully shot.
Bearded Captain Chakotay just hanging out on top of his ship, just like being a bum on his broke down ship.
Listen, what are you gonna do out there? Fish? He can't even do that. He looks. He does
Tom
look
Hanks.
sort of. He looked either like Zen or. Did you say Tom Hanks like Castaway? Yeah. He's the beard is a clear-cut indication of time passage, and there he is waiting for the kids, and they are like just a few hundred feet away. So. This was another one of those episodes, these last two, where we're kind of more or less people got on the same page. Janeway is up to date on what's going on, maybe not on every detail, but
she got to talk to the kids. They got to share notes before they parted ways again. That was good.
Yeah, and she more or less signed off on it, right? Like, this shit's crazy, but it sounds like it's what we got to do.
Wes doesn't overstay his welcome. He does the big important stuff, and then he's like, "Well, I have to go hold back the loom. See you later. Bye."
Yeah, and then he's all all very. I don't even know how to describe it, but he gets the cool last words of the sort of the mantra of his power. He's like space, time, thought, as he's holding off with his powers the loom. And I was like, that's pretty cool. I can only assume that is not the last we will see of him. But
were we saying, Aaron?
I just thought of something since they send the protostar back in time, I'm assuming that Janeway is this Janeway then, who has experienced all of this. Because remember in season 1, it was just she's really just sort of letting them do anything. And it's that seems weird. Her programming should be better than that. She would just know that they are actually okay to be there.
Well, this isn't. We haven't had the Hollow Janeway in season 2 yet.
That's true. I guess this has all been flesh.
This has all been real Admiral
okay.
Janeway.
Oh, sorry. It was mentioned in the chat room. Sorry, and I just for some reason thought it was at the very end of this.
But Jill in the comments says this was a great breaking point for the first group of 10 episodes, and I would have to agree with that. They are they've reached at least a portion. The first part of their quest, they found Chakotay. And it's Father, you mentioned that they got to do some fun little standalone episodes, Planet of the Week style, but they also had these fairly organic, big picture episodes of stealing ships and all that, and it's been a satisfying 10 episodes.
Any final thoughts on the Devourer of all things, Aaron?
Jabalian omelets. No, that was mentioned. It's like the Jabalian chocolate cake was the only other time we'd heard.
That was cool though that they foreshadow Zero in Dow's body when he was eating in the mess hall, when the holograms had the wrong personalities, and the hollow Dow with Zero's personality was so excited to be like, oh, the yamek sauce and bog crabs are so good. And then when you see when Zero actually can eat for the first time, they have like that same reaction. I thought that was like so cool. And you don't notice that until you start to rewatch the show.
I had not noticed that. That's cool.
But
I wanted to mention something that was they're told to not look at some point, I think, when they're going through space.
Right. No one likes spoilers. Don't
that was a good nice little
But Dow looked, and I apparently saw something not good. And I'm that that's a neat little mini cliffhanger itself. You never knowing how these things work. He might have thought he saw something.
He saw a vision of the future of himself, saying to Gwen that chair never belonged to me.
That's right.
Which doesn't necessarily have to be negative, though. I feel like he's seeing a fragment of whatever that was.
But it would be like from my perspective, if I saw a glimpse of the future, it would be like me being like, well, being a Star Trek podcaster is not for me. I have to give up that life or something. I'd be like, no, that's like my favorite thing to do. That would be so terrifying for me to see that.
Well, it could be that you got a job on Star Trek and you didn't have time to do it. So.
Right? Yeah. I guess it could mean like a good thing, but I would assume the worst, which I guess Dow is doing as well.
Yeah.
A lot of us would probably.
The emotional reaction that Dow he's headstrong. He's big emotions and stuff. That's cool. I see in the comments Aaron Waltke with maybe kind of some closing thoughts. He said writing this episode was like being on a Universal Studios ride I was creating in my head. That's fun. I'm glad that it's fun to work on Star Trek as one might hope it would be. I know it's a lot of busting your ass too.
Yeah, that's fun to hear, Aaron, and thank you for joining us in the audience tonight and giving us some insight on the show.
Always great.
So we've been doing this bingo card of Star Trek reference bingo that because Star Trek Prodigy writer-producer Aaron Waltke had bragged about the show, the season would reference all Star Trek shows and movies, and I heard that and I was like, oh, there's no way in hell they're gonna cover like everything. But just within like these first 10 episodes, like I can mark off like most of
Star Trek 2. It's like
we got like
the
SETI Eels for brains. We had like the mycelial plane from Disco, the Narada incursion from Star Trek 09.
Yeah.
So the only
that was neat to hear it referenced that way as the Narada incursion. That made it sound really cool.
Yeah, the only things that I haven't spotted references to yet in the first 10 episodes are Star Trek 3: The Search for Spock, which I guess does Grand Theft Starship count as a Star Trek 3 thing? Because they were technically like doing that in the Menagerie, so it would predate, I guess. But
or any of them. I guess none of the mind.
No, I don't. The Menagerie, they don't really. Spock doesn't really like steal the Enterprise. I guess he just kind of I don't know. He hacks the controls. He doesn't steal the ship. So I think we can cross off Star Trek 3, but I haven't seen anything from Star Trek 5 or 6 or Star Trek Generations or Star Trek Nemesis or Star Trek Into Darkness or Star Trek Strange New Worlds. Every other show and movie I think has been covered at this point.
Maybe Voyager will crash on like a planet. You check the saucer section.
Yeah, I guess anytime you go to a Strange New World, does that reference Strange New World? Like that's the name of the show.
Yeah, that's right.
I feel like there was something from Into Darkness, and now I can't remember. Shoot. Okay, I'll have to think about it.
But it'll be a lot of fun to go through the next 5 episodes next week and see if there's more references there. And if anyone thinks I've missed anything in the first 10, let me know. But I'm looking forward to coming back next week to discuss Star Trek Prodigy Season 2, episodes 10 to 15. Now that we have Chakotay and the Protostar, there's going to be some big... I don't know, change. They can do some different stuff in the next 5 that they couldn't do previously. So,
Father, it's bearded Chakotay. Will he get Rikered up? Will he? Is this his moment?
Or will he de-beard?
Or will he de-beard and lose his virility?
Or will he get a different beard altogether? Like you don't know. It could be anything. Dave hasn't seen it yet, so to him it's like the sky's the limit, right? It's like all good things, the sky's the limit. So. But I hope everyone else comes back Friday and joins us to discuss those next 5. And until then, as always, live long and prosper, y'all.
Listen to the Tex-Trek podcast through Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or at tex-trek.com. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/tex-trek. And follow Fatheree on Twitter at TXTrek. Please support us by liking our videos and subscribing to our channel on YouTube. Thank you and take care.